And okay. All right. So I'm so happy that you're here and you're on the West Coast, and I appreciate you so much getting home from school and rushing, getting all your stuff together and speaking with me tonight about the blended classroom, the blended science classroom.
Right.
And why don't you tell us about yourself? You're so interesting.
Okay, my name is Kristina, but I go by Christi. And I have been teaching science in middle school for about 19 years now. So a long time teaching there. The school I've been at is actually part of the district where I actually grew up in. So I'm a hometown girl back teaching in my own district. So I love that.
So are we, by the way.
Are you?
Mm-hmm, yep.
So in fact, my kids actually go to my elementary school right now, which is great.
So do mine. I didn't know this.
Yes. So, having the kids in my classes that I used to be in is kind of surreal sometimes.
Do you have a lot of your friends that you grew up with kids?
A lot of my friends still live in the area, so we talk a lot. And then my kids' teachers, both of them are really good friends of mine. So it's wonderful for that.
That's cool. That's cool. Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, two of my sons go to my elementary school and my husband teaches there.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So we bought our house when my son was a baby, knowing this is what we wanted. Like we wanted. Okay. That's awesome. Okay. So you're you're a science teacher.
So I'm a science teacher. Yep. And my students are pretty much high English language learners and very low income. So I teach the very needy type students, which I love. I feel like I'm very needed there. So it's wonderful. But technology is hard for them. I mean, most of them do their essays on their smartphones, which is kind of difficult sometimes. So
in your classroom, do you allow them to use their smartphones, or is it Chromebook?
I have Chromebooks. We are a Title I school. So 2 principals ago, we started getting Chromebooks to every classroom. And now,
did you say 2 principals ago?
Yes. So it's taken 5 years. We now have Chrome cards in every single classroom, which is wonderful because I'm on them, I would say at least 3 or 4 times a week. It's very common for us to be on the Chromebooks. And then I do allow, since, YouTube is blocked and some sites are blocked, I allow my students to be on their phone for research purposes or for a calculator.
So you prompt them when they could use their device.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell them, when I hold the phone, and I say, this is not a social media. It's not a camera. It is a calculator, or it is a stopwatch. Since we don't have stopwatches, we need them in science. So, I always prompt them, and as long as they're with me, and usually I have no problem with the students following the rules. I've only had one time in all my teaching where one student was completely removed from computers because of what he did. And it was like over and over and over.
Wait, what he did or didn't do?
What he did and was doing constantly. So.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I was a high school teacher. I totally know.
Yeah.
I once had to rip the cord out of the wall.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't get what was happening to stop. I was like, doing the keyboard, you're like, delete. And then it wasn't working. So I just went, yeah.
Well, mine thought that if you delete history, that it's gone. And I, let him know really quickly that, So. Yeah. Delete or if I clear my cache, maybe she won't. Yeah. Or browses guest. They went, no, we know. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sharing this again. Okay. So about a week ago, I saw you on social media talking about, you had a new blog post for the blended classroom. And before we get into the stations model and the differentiation and all the excitement, I just want to say that it spoke to me when I saw it. I was like, yes, because lately, everything I've been reading with the technology and the classroom stuff and the direction we're all going in, I believe that even if schools are going in the direction of trying to be paperless 100%, they're going to come back to the blended model because they saw maybe that didn't work as much as they thought it was going to work, that you need both.
You need it all. I don't think I could never go 100% paperless. I don't think that's healthy for the kids, personally.
No, right? Like it just.
When I was And I was talking to the kids about the, because problem solving seems to have gone away a lot with my students. They have trouble. And I was comparing it
I agree.
I grew up playing video games compared to when they play video games now. When we grew up playing video games, back in the Atari.
ColecoVision. I had ColecoVision, right.
If you had trouble, you had to literally figure it out. You had to problem solve yourself. There was no YouTube. There was no Google. You just had to keep moving and changing it up to figure it out. Nowadays, they go to Google and YouTube. They find someone else, how they did it. And
like the scripts. Right. What do they call them? Sequences or?
And so all they do though is they just copy what someone else did and then they do it. They don't problem solve. And so
that's such a good point.
Seeing the big difference now because problem solving has become difficult for my students.
Okay, so now that leads me into the difference between STEM and Istem, because your branding is Adventures in Istem. So can you tell us what the difference is?
So STEM, as people know, stands for science, technology, engineering, and math, which is wonderful. Mine throws in the inquiry because I think that is an important part of the whole thing. Instead of giving the students directions step by step, it's more of an inquiry model. I want them to try and figure it out. So sometimes my direction is just, what are you going to do? Here's all your stuff. How are you going to figure this out? How are you going to solve it? And yes, that is part of the engineering process. But I think that, when I look at STEM, a lot of STEM projects, a lot of people do the thinking for the students. And they just build something that has already been done for them and figured out for them how to do it step by step, where I want the creativity back. And I find that a lot of my students, it's difficult for them to be creative and think outside the box and problem solve with others and fail. And they're so used to I have students who I had to take off the A pluses and the A minuses. I had to get rid of all my pluses and minuses because I had students who an A minus was like detrimental to them. They could not handle it. And I'm like, it's the same. It's a 4.0. Like, it doesn't matter. So.
And that's a middle school.
That's a middle school. Oh yeah. We have my students we're seeing it more and more. Anxiety is becoming an extreme problem.
I just had this discussion with somebody like 2-3 days ago about anxiety is so on the rise. And you're seeing it in middle school.
For me, it runs in my family. So like I had anxiety and I had like test anxiety and stuff like that, where I finally had it taken care of in college when I finally got help for it. But I'm seeing it in my daughter, like she can't before a test, and she's in 5th grade. And I'm seeing it in her already. But I have a student who's going to be out for 3 weeks because of anxiety. Like, it's just so sad. But, I'm trying to loosen the kids up and say, you know what, it's okay. Like, this grade is okay. It's fine. But the pressure, I don't, it's just crazy.
Do you give them the tools they need to learn the inquiry process?
Yes.
Because it is when my school was going towards problem-based, not project-based learning, problem-based learning,
right.
We were having students come to us as ninth graders. We were just throwing this at them, and I said to myself, "Wait a minute, we have to teach them how to tackle this,
right?
And the inquiry process, and like how to manage it." So, what do you give them for that?
So I do a lot of modeling in the beginning, and we practice it together. And my students always work in groups. They're never on their own. It's always in pairs and groups, especially since a lot of language learners, so they have to talk and constantly.
That's awesome. It's totally 21st century learning.
So,
right. That's great.
But it is. And sometimes I'll let them play around and fail, and then I'll show them how it's doing. Like, I figure I have 2 years. I have 2 years only for my middle school students to take them from copying in elementary school, which I tell them by the time they get to me, like, you're great. You know how to copy, but now you have to think on your own. So when they're taking notes from a video, when we do our flip lessons, I have them take their notes first, and then I show them my notes on how I took the notes. So they can talk and they can see, and they also talk to their partners about how they took their notes.
Do you pick their partners?
I don't. I used to. I now allow them to choose their seats. I have veto rights, but I have found that ever since I let them choose their seats, the drama that happens in middle school with we're friends and we're not friends and has gone away.
Oh, get out. Okay.
Great. So there's only a few times where I have to veto their right because the choice they made has been has
you override it.
Yes,
I'm overriding this.
yes.
Okay,
But most of the time,
let's go into how you set up your science stations.
Okay.
I love this.
So when I first learned about this blended learning, I was part of our technology task force in my district, which was probably, I think, 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we were getting into it, and there was a group of, I think there was 4 middle school students or teachers and 6 high school teachers, a small group of us. And we were just trying this out, new technology. And we saw it where they were doing the stations, 3 stations, all in the same day, together, 15 minutes each station. And I was like, oh, there's just no way my students can handle that. By the time I set them up and take it down and we talk about it, it's just not going to happen.
Do you get to be in the same room all day?
I'm in the same room all day. So I don't.
That's lucky.
Yeah. So I have a science classroom, which is nice. But I did find that my students, because it takes them so long to read the directions, and we're practicing on the skill of, and I hope they get it by the end of 2 years, how to just read and follow directions. But they need all that time. So I do 1 station a day. So yes, it does take me 3 days to do the stations, but that's because every day we talk about the expectations. And at the end, we do a wrap up. And that right there with a warm up and stuff, like 10, 15 minutes have already gone. And I maybe have a half an hour left now. So it takes a half an hour for them to read the directions, talk about it. And that's pretty much 1 station a day. And
So what is it, 45-minute period? Is it block?
Yeah, 50-minute period, and that's it.
Okay. No, you're lucky. No, I missed that. My school went to the block.
Oh.
Where you get them for like 78 minutes and you're like, or 81 minutes. And you're just like, oh my God.
What am I going to do?
But the drawback was, it wasn't the length of time I had them. It was the next day I didn't see them.
Right.
Or, that was the part that I was, teaching small group instruction, inclusion classes with special ed students. I wanted to see them every day.
Right. Yeah.
And I didn't like that. Like on a Thursday, I'm like, oh, I don't see you tomorrow. I'll see you Monday. So, okay. So your group collaboration station.
Right.
No, wait, I want to talk about online station.
So the online station.
That's it.
I have found that, some teachers think that technology is to put them in front of a computer, have them do it on their own quietly, and that's it. And then they're doing technology. And I think they're missing the most important part is that, especially with my students who are language learners, they need to talk. So they're always in pairs. They never do an online station on their own. Even if they're doing like a digital notebook or an online lab, which I love all those online labs now that are coming up, they have to be in pairs. So if they're doing an online investigation, one student might have their screen on the investigation and the other student has it on a Google Classroom form, Google form that I have in Classroom.
Yes.
And they're doing the questions and talking to each other as they're going through it.
So there's a recorder, someone who's recording. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. They must love going to your class for all
I have a huge amount of people who want to get in.
Yeah. Because you're not sitting there for 45 minutes,
Right.
Yeah,
and even when they do a video, like there's when I do my forces, my forces is my favorite because I can teach it through sports. So we watch football.
Nice.
We have a lot of fun. And there's these great videos, but they're not allowed to watch the video by themselves. They might each have their own video, but with the Ed Puzzle that I use Ed Puzzle for host my videos. It'll stop them halfway and it'll say, stop, have a conversation with your partner. What are you guys watching? Okay, let's write this down.
I have to say, you said that you have a lot of students who are English language learners.
Right.
And I myself over the years have had a lot of students of diverse backgrounds, and sports always connects kids.
Always. Yes.
No matter what culture. It's you talk soccer, forget in New Jersey, it's where I live, it's all cultures love soccer. I mean, it's a great thing to bring into your classroom. That's cool.
Yeah, so that's my favorite. And
I love that.
I always find out what their sports are like. Like I would never thought, like mine are mostly Hispanic. And when I have them choose their own sport, I was surprised at how many people chose golf. I was like, golf?
Really?
Soccer, baseball, golf, or tennis. And I was like, oh, okay.
Interesting. Growing popularity.
Yeah. So of course soccer's always there with them, but that's my
soccer.
favorite.
You say soccer here where I live, it's
I know I coached my son for the first time. So I appreciate kindergarten teachers so much more now. 6 boys.
Where I live, we call that munchkin soccer.
Oh my gosh. 6 boys, 45 minutes of practice. I was done. I'm exhausted.
Yeah. I know. That's one thing. Soccer parents, people that don't realize the thing about soccer, it's a timed game. So there's a beginning and an end and you're out of there.
Right.
Or like baseball goes on for 3 hours. Yeah. Okay. So the group collaboration station.
Okay. So group collaboration. That's when I like to do my little projects. So it could be different things. It could be a mini lab that I want them to do, an actual hands-on activity. This is perfect for your science labs that you feel the students can handle on their own, but yet you don't have enough supplies. Like, when we have balance
good point.
Scales, we have to share them. Well, I might only have 2 or 3 balances. So this is a perfect opportunity to use it. Or microscopes, but I can use my microscopes because I think we have 5 working microscopes right now. So,
right.
When your supplies are limited, it's perfect to have those, you have only 2 or 3 groups going with those supplies.
That's a good point.
That's a good one there.
So what, on average, how big are the groups?
My groups range between, most of my groups are 4 students, 3 to 4 students is what I like to have. No bigger, smaller they can go to, but usually it's 3 to 4.
Okay.
And they do have jobs. I make sure they have a job. I call it the CEO because I was trying to go more business-like.
That's cool.
CEO. We have our ambassador, and the ambassador's job, they're allowed to get up and they can actually travel to other groups to ask.
Have a blog? I have the blog post in front of me where it maps all this out, but do you have content that our viewers can go to just on that?
On the CEO groups? Gosh, I cannot remember.
I just gave you an idea for your next blog post.
If I don't, it will be coming up.
Because let me tell you, teachers that are going towards this,
that's
a challenge. Like there's
at the end they'll know that I'm offering a freebie, my density science station, which is one of my more popular ones, but it's one that most people do hit with measurement. And in there, I do have a write-up of the jobs and how to do it and different ways you can differentiate the stations. So
I think that's awesome.
So
I would love that. Because how we talked about the inquiry process?
Right.
I think as teachers teaching or promoting group work, you also have to help kids work in groups together, learning their different roles.
And I teach like the regular core, but I teach what we call now, they keep changing every year. Every year they change the name. Now it was the pre-AP class, advanced class. Now it's the advanced learner program, which is your GATE students and your higher learners. And, teaching those students how to collaborate and talk to each other when they want to do their things around themselves, it's difficult and it has to be done. Like I sat one time with 2 boys and just sat there with them the whole class period. And we learned how to talk correctly to each other. Because
God, can I have you as a teacher? Teach me.
But it's like they needed that because they were butting heads the whole time. I'm like, wait, let's talk. Let's say it this way. Let's talk about this way. Let's let them, listen to what his ideas are, and they need to be taught this because they aren't, and that's something that.
That's wonderful. I love that. Okay. So the teacher-led station.
Oh, this is my favorite.
Okay.
This is the part where the most impact happens, I think. Because especially when you're doing the math part in science, I have students who still cannot divide. They're in a math level about a 2nd grader. And then I have my students who are taking geometry. So this allows me to do real world problems and higher level math with them. And then also with the other ones, just practice basic division when I have those standards. And then it also allows me with the students who are struggling with the topic, I can really sit there and I got 12 students and I can talk with them more one-on-one and I can clarify everything and figure out all the misconceptions by the end of that station.
Okay. So would you call the station like a Minilesson station or this is the station that
it can be a many different things. So sometimes if I have a more complicated lab that I want to oversee, I'm watching them as a hawk and helping them out because I need more. I want them to do it, but I still need to be really careful because of the chemicals we're working with. And these are middle school students.
Yeah. Right.
But then also, my advanced, if I want to bring in a real world article, students have trouble reading expository text, like really high level, and they need to be taught how to find patterns and do those gate icons, the depth and complexity icons. So finding patterns, looking at the ethics, and I can help them and direct them more with that. So it's just whatever you need it to be.
So what model do you I'm familiar with like Notice and Note. Do you use a specific model to
we do. I'm at an Avid National Demonstration School, so we are high in Cornell notes and focus note taking.
Got it.
So that's what our model we're using.
Okay. So we talked about how you set up your groups. Do you want to touch upon anything with that again?
My groups. So there's different ways you can set them up and how you're going to group the students. For me, I like to do the blended learning stations usually after I've taught a little bit, and I give them a quick little assessment. So I know who's struggling, who's not. And if this standard is like a math-based standard, or it's going to be a math thing, I might group them by their math ability. So I can have the lower math kids in one group with me and the higher math kids in another. If it's one where we might be doing some higher level learning where I can bring in a real life article that's really interesting, then I might group them by their ability of reading. So that way I can have those who are higher level reading can read a higher text, and those who are lower can read a lower text. That Newsela,
oh my God, I was just thinking that too. So Newsela is awesome for that because you could take the same.
Yes, same article and change it up and, hit with the different.
So for our viewers who are not familiar with news, I call it Newsela. Newsela. They have leveled reading articles, so you could pick one article for your whole class, right, but there's different versions of the article for different level readers. Did you have to pay for your, I know.
You know what, we have
a free.
I will tell you, Brain Pop now, because our school does pay for it for our English teachers. And I found that sometimes it's hard to find an article that's science. There are lots of science articles, but to hit our topics is more difficult, But Brain Pop has now joined with them. So we have the Brain Pop subscription, which is like
I did not know this.
Elementary
school. This is exciting news.
This was brand new when I went onto it this year, and I went, oh my gosh, now they have an article that goes with the video, and the articles are pretty well done. So they match pretty closely, which I love. Takes a lot of the guessing around out of it.
Okay, so let's talk. We don't have that much time left.
Okay.
So let's try to get grading in, and just to tell everybody one more. Can we just tell real quick where everybody can find you after the Facebook Live?
So everything is Adventures in Istem. So I'm on Instagram at Adventures in Istem. My blog is adventuresinIstem.com. Facebook.
Awesome blog, by the way.
Adventures in Istem. So I try to make it as easy as possible. Just Adventures in Istem, and you can find all my information there.
I can find you everywhere, right? I love that.
Yeah. I tried to make it so
yeah, that's great. No, that's great. And for everyone that wants to check out Kristina's blog afterwards, again, it's adventuresinistem.com. Blog is loaded with pictures, tips, strategies.
And there is that free density one. And even if you don't teach density, because you're life science, which I do teach 2 classes of life science. It's not, I teach mostly physical, but I do have some life science ones. But you can still get the setup of how to do the stations and all that, how to do the groups, different ways you can incorporate it and ideas. So even if you don't teach density, it might be nice just to download it just so you can get an idea of how to do the blended learning stations.
So a couple months back, I talked with Leah Cleary, who is a social studies teacher out of Georgia. I hope she tunes in at some point to watch this tonight. She's also a huge advocate for blended learning classroom. And when we spoke, we focused on what to offer in a blended learning classroom. So tonight I got to talk to you about how to set it up, how to set up your stations. And I love this. We're going to end up talking again, you and I.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. So we have a couple minutes left. So can you just talk about your assessments and how you do your grading?
Right. So for blended learning stations, for me, it's just a way to explore. They're getting used to it. So I don't grade the blended learning stations. But I don't grade much at all. I know. But
not everything needs to be graded.
No, and I think that to me, it's like, they're just getting used to this. So if I'm going to grade them, I feel like they're still trying it out, and that's penalizing them. But I also do standards-based grading too. So I don't have like a 90%, 80%. I do the Marzano's scale for all my grading.
Which is a mastery, right?
Which is for mastery, yes.
Right.
So my student's going to do it over and over again. So
oh my God, you're testing my knowledge tonight. All right. Yeah, it's the mastery, right?
Right, but that means also less grading for me. So the stations, I will give them a work habits grade, which has no academic with it. It doesn't count against their academic grade. It's just, did you accomplish what you were supposed to accomplish? Were you on task? That's what I'm looking at when we're doing these stations. And most of the time they pass with no problem. You get those few, and you know who those are, who
yes,
constantly need to be walked around, which is why it's important on the TeacherLed Station that you plan it so that you give yourself, after 10 minutes of working with the kids, time to stop and walk around really quick and do any clarification of every other one who's at the different stations, and give yourself some time for that,
In the Marzano model, do they ever self-assess?
They do. My students do. They do self-assess, and we'll do a thumbs up, thumbs down. I do it to get out the door. So even though I'm not grading, I do formative assessments. I want to see where they're at, because after the blended learning station, I get them into projects or some other activity, and I need to see, are they really ready for it, or do we need to do a reading to understand, like, where do I need to go next? So I'm constantly doing those formative assessments with them.
Not you?
That's my, yeah. It's my parents' phone, so they're going to get that pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh my God, everyone. It's 8:01 Eastern Standard Time, and my children have not come in yet.
Mine came in.
There must be something good on television downstairs. My husband's doing a good job tonight. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank you so much. So when can you talk again with us? Soon, I hope?
Soon. I can talk soon. Yes, because I do also with blended learning. There's different models, and I do the flip lessons also, which is
I see a flip. Better. I see a flip lesson Facebook Live in our future. Oh my God! Oh my God! This was amazing, and it's great because I got to ask you to be here tonight with us, and for me, but like I got to learn from you too, and I appreciate it so much.
It was nice having this conversation even before.
Yes.
So. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cool. All right. So you'll come back?
Yes, I definitely will.
All right. So tell your parents to answer the phone. All right. I'll talk to you really soon. Thank you for everything. Have a great night. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget your freebie, everyone.
Yes. Go.
Okay.
Go to the site.
All right. Great. Good night.
Bye.